I want to talk about Tucker Carlson. I want to go through his worst moments as a kind of, in memoriam for Tucker Carlson's time on Fox News, which he's been working on since the mid 2000s. Now that he's been fired and he might, start a Joe Rogan podcast, maybe he goes over the OAN. I think if you'd have put a gun to my head and asked, that he's probably going to make his own independent platform, his own independent show, so he can rake in all the money to himself and he has complete editorial control. So when he says crazy lies, there'll be literally no one to stop him. He already at Fox basically was given free reign to do crazy lies. Until, of course, Fox lost $787.5 million. But now we're living in a post-Tucker on Fox world. And I wanted to see the type of content he produced on Fox and the type of content that we're now no longer going to have access to on the network. So I wanted to start, of course, with Jimmy Dore saying this about Tucker Carlson getting fired. So now there are 0 people telling the truth about Ukraine or war in general on TV news. 0. Tucker Carlson was telling the truth about Ukraine. How brave of him. How very, very brave of him to tell the truth about Ukraine. What type of truths did he tell about Ukraine? Well, in this interview where he's with Robert Kennedy, somebody who's running for president right now on the Democratic ticket, he talked about how that Ukrainians are dying at a ratio of 7-to-1 when it comes to military casualties, which is a lie. That is a flat out lie. I think maybe we can just, I think this is the whole segment, so I don't think it's snapped perfectly here. But this comes from the Jack Textera leaks coming out, which said that there was a ratio of 2.5 Russians dead for every 1 Ukrainian dead in the military forces. And then it was manipulated to show 7-to-1 deaths. And it wasn't a good manipulation. Some of the numbers were like cut in half, so you could tell that it was edited. It was colored. The color was different in the area that was edited from the rest of the page. The spaces in between words weren't lined up. The rest of the documents referenced the original data, the non-edited data. But Tucker Carlson either fell for it or he nefariously took that data and just purposely lied with it. Or we can talk about Tucker Carlson lying about Ukraine, how last week he said that Ukraine, because we had secrets with them related to nuclear, I'm saying it like Donald Trump right now, which might be in relation to, I don't know, the 50% of the electricity in Ukraine that is produced by nuclear energy could be in relation to that. Tucker Carlson jumped to the conclusion that this means that we have nuclear weapons in Ukraine, that Ukraine has nuclear weapons. Right? This is the type of hard-hitting Ukrainian journalism that we're going to be losing out on with the Tucker Carlson project. But putting Jimmy Dore aside and me seething over Jimmy Dore's idiotic tweet, I want to talk about some of the pre-Tucker Carlson content, the content that led up to him going on Fox. And I'm going to start with Warren Jeffs. Now, for those of you who don't know, there's a documentary on Netflix about Warren Jeffs and about the cult that he ran that is very, very good. I think it's called like Pray and Obey or something along those lines. I've seen it. It's very good. You should go watch it. Warren Jeffs is a cult leader. It's a breakaway of the Mormon Church, the Church of Latter-day Saints, and he believed that he was the prophet of God. He was a prophet on earth of God, and he married a bunch of little girls, 12, 13, 14, off to men, and told men that the more wives you had, the closer you are to heaven. And so he would reward his most loyal followers by marrying them little girls. He also married all of his father's wives after his father died. Very crazy man. He also believes like black people are like a curse on earth. But putting all that aside, eventually he got caught and was put on the FBI's 10 most wanted list for sleeping with a 12-year-old girl that he had quote unquote married, sleeping with a 14-year-old girl, as we would call it, statutory rape, that he had quote unquote married, as well as married off multiple underage girls to other people in his movement, his followers. That's what we have a record of. There was probably more, but a lot of it was not, covered or not uncovered. This is what we could actually get him on. He's still in prison to this day, putting out end time prophecies, nut job. Why are we talking about Warren Jeffs? Because on Bubba the Love Sponge's Shock Jock radio show, Tucker Carlson was a guest, and he defended Warren Jeffs' actions.
Well, actually, he's not in prison for that. Warren Jeffs didn't marry underage girls.
No, he's in prison for facilitation of child.
The way he did.
Whatever the hell that means.
That means
he's in prison because he's weird and unpopular, and he has a different lifestyle that other people find creepy.
No, he's an accessory to the rape of children. That is a felony, and a serious one at that.
What do you mean an accessory? He's like got some weird religious cult where he thinks it's okay to, marry underage girls, but he didn't do it. Why wouldn't the guy who actually did it, who had sex with an underage girl, he should be the one who's doing life? The rapist in this case has made a lifelong commitment to live.
By the way, facilitating a rape is a crime because you should not be helping people rape people. This is why human traffickers, even if they never personally raped anybody, could still go to prison for human trafficking.
Live and take care of the person, so it is a little different. I mean, let's just be honest about it. He's not accused of touching anybody. He is accused of facilitating a marriage between a 16-year-old girl and a 27-year-old man. That's the accusation. That's what they're calling felony rape.
But in our state,
that's bullshit. I'm sorry. Now, this guy may be a total creep, maybe a child rapist. I'm just telling you that arranging a marriage between a 16-year-old and a 27-year-old is not the same as pulling a stranger off the street and raping her. That's bullshit.
But you know what? In my brief experience, what gets women going is arguing with them.
Really?
Yeah.
Brad, I never use that.
It's true. You debate politics with a woman and just go, just full-blown out there, especially feminism. If you're talking to a feminist and she's giving you, men really need to be more sensitive and this. Actually, men don't need to be more sensitive. You just need to be quiet and kind of do what you're told.
And lighten up a little bit, bitch.
They love it.
Alexis Stewart, we run into her all the time.
Anyway, that's the portion on Warren Jeffs that I wanted to show. This isn't the only comments that would get him in trouble on Bubba the Love Sponge's Shock Jock program. He would also go on to talk about Iraqis and Afghans. This is the segment that talks about Iraqis, though, calling them primitive apes and how they need to do what they're told after supporting the invasion of Iraq.
Iraq is a crappy place filled with a bunch of, semi-literate primitive monkeys.
But I just have zero sympathy for them or their culture, a culture where people just don't use toilet paper or forks.
And the way they treat women, I agree with you. Their culture is, but you're in their homeland, and you're over there as an American who they hate, and they want nothing more than the Americans off of their soil. So they're not going to play games.
They can just shut the fuck up and obey, is my view.
How could you salvage Iraq at this point?
I don't, it's beyond our control. I mean, if somehow the Iraqis decided to behave like human beings or something.
He'd need to say, look, I'm a bigot, okay? I'm a bigot. I don't like Islamic extremists. Like, if you are really heavily into Islam, I'm sorry, I don't care for you that much. And I don't care what that sounds like. You can call me a racist. You can come whatever the fuck you want.
And at this juncture, you could say that and not catch a lot of shit for it.
You certainly could. I'd vote for you if you said that.
White men have, they've contributed some, I would say, like creating civilization and stuff. I think they've done a pretty, I don't know, whatever.
Obama would kick your ass playing basketball.
Okay, you get the point. The rest of it is comments you would expect. But the reason I bring this up, it isn't because this is supposed to be about his time at Fox, is because this was revealed by Media Matters during his time in Fox. It was unearthed in about 2019 as these comments were brought forward. And instead of just doing what a normal person would do, is be like, obviously I was wrong about Warren Jeffs. He was a child rapist, and that's evil. And that's bad, and yes, I think facilitating the rape of children is bad, and no, I do not think Iraqis are semi-literate primitive monkeys who should just quote-unquote obey us. Instead, when asked about these comments, he put out a response that was this: Media Matters caught me saying something naughty. Something naughty, that's it. Something naughty on a radio show more than a decade ago, rather than express the usual ritual contrition. How about this? I'm on television every weeknight. Live. Not anymore. I'm on television every weeknight, live for an hour. If you want to know what I think, you can watch. Anyone who disagrees with my views is welcome to come on and explain why. He doesn't clarify. He doesn't take anything back. He doesn't say, actually, I don't think Iraqis are monkeys. Actually, I do think raping, maybe raping kids is bad and he shouldn't have done that. Instead, he just puts out the statement because he wants to seem tough, because he wants to be the guy who doesn't bow to the left, even when he did something and said something absolutely wrong. But let's get actually to his time on the network. And I want to talk about the Great Replacement Theory and what he has said about immigration first. This is one of the more just directly gross things that he said on immigration, calling immigrants dirty, saying that they're making the country dirtier, poorer, and more divided, as he slides into some Great Replacement rhetoric that we're going to look at in a second.
Good evening and welcome to Tucker Carlson Tonight. Here's a funny thing that we noticed the other day. People debate all the time about mass immigration. What you never hear anybody do is make the economic case for mass immigration. But as an economic matter, this is insane.
People do it all the time, by the way. Like, economists absolutely argue about immigration and the importance of like work visas and industries like the shipping industry and others, and especially when it comes to like farmhands and stuff like that, which is highly reliant on migrant labor. Yeah, I mean, economists do this all the time.
Insane. It's indefensible, so nobody even tries to defend it. Instead, our leaders demand that you shut up and accept this. We have a moral obligation to admit the world's poor, they tell us, even if it makes our own country poorer and dirtier and more divided. Huddled masses yearning to breathe free? Nope. Cynical shakedown artists who've been watching too much CNN.
Tucker Carlson is brought to you by Pacific Life.
Pacific Life. But that isn't the only time he's talked about the Great Replacement Theory. He said it by name on many other occasions as well. Let's get to the big one, though. Here's just an article talking about it, Yahoo Sports. Let's get to the big piece that was done by the New York Times on this issue, where he said again and again and again,
in order to win and maintain
the Great
power,
Replacement
Democrats
Theory.
plan to change the population of the country.
Let's play the audio.
This is how radical demographic change happens. I don't want to live in a country that looks nothing like the country I grew up in. They can embrace the issues the middle class cares about, or they can import an entirely new electorate from the third world and change the demographics of the U.S. so completely they'll never lose again. Democrats know if they import enough new voters, they'll be able to run the country forever. Dramatic demographic change means many Americans don't recognize where they grew up. As with illegal immigration, the long-term agenda of refugee resettlement is to bring in future Democratic voters. Illegal immigrants are the key to their power. The point is to import as many new Democratic voters as possible. The whole point of their immigration policy is to ensure political control, replace the population. This policy is called the Great Replacement, the replacement of legacy Americans with more obedient people from faraway countries.
So he directly references the Great Replacement Theory, which then many of his viewers would go into a rabbit hole and finding out about it. For those of you who don't know, the Great Replacement Theory is a theory that there is some elite cabal, a group of people, a lot of times it's Democrats, sometimes it's the Jews, it's any group of people that are organizing the importation of migrants from around the world to replace the domestic white population and to gain political control of the country by making the nation, well, basically browner and full of immigrants. And this has inspired multiple terror attacks in the United States. In fact, one of the most destructive terror attacks in the United States against the Latino community, where 23 people were killed in an El Paso shopping mall in 2019, came from somebody inspired by the Great Replacement Theory who thought he was defending his country from the immigrant horde. It's not the only shooter that's done this. The Buffalo shooter is somebody who has also referenced the Great Replacement Theory as well. The Buffalo shooter was also a big supporter of the Russian invasion in Ukraine and fight against NATO. Just throwing that out there. And once these things happened, specifically after the El Paso shooting, as Tucker Carlson was one of the people, again, you know, running with this narrative of the Great Replacement Theory, the same theory that inspired these people to go out and do these shootings, he then responded to these shootings by just saying white supremacy is a hoax. Let's read it. Fox News Channel host Tucker Carlson faced criticism Wednesday for declaring white supremacy a hoax the same day President Trump visited El Paso, Texas, after a white gunman who had written an anti-Hispanic rant killed 22 people. Carlson has faced criticism before his commentary, including a statement that immigration has made America dirtier. His remarks Tuesday came with the nation rubbed raw by 2 weekend mass shootings and increased concerns by law enforcement officials about violence attached to white nationalism. He has used his platform to push out prejudice, said Jonathan Greenbelt, CEO and National Director of the Anti-Defamation League. I think it's disgusting, and I don't think it deserves a place on the major news networks. So putting that to the side for a moment, I also want to go and talk about the needle. I can't say it directly because YouTube will demonetize me. So I'm just going to say the needle that dealt with that thing that was killing the elderly. You can look on the screen if you really need to know. He had a lot of commentary about that as well. That was pretty bonkers, including how they called it medical Jim Crow, the needle programs that were going on in the United States, comparing it to the period in American history where black people were being hosed down, chased by dogs, and lynched, which, as far as I know, nobody who refused the needle was ever strung up by a tree, had their balls cut off and put in their mouth. He also made the claim that the program for the needle in I almost said it, in the military was actually a plot to find out who the true Christians were. Let's play the clip.
Mandatory the point of mandatory it's a takeover of the U.S. military. Here's how they're doing it. This show has just obtained a PowerPoint is to identify Satanism.
Okay, I don't know why it's doing that. Dude, the Twitter media player has become complete garbage. It has zero stability.
The point of mandatory vaccination is to identify the sincere Christians in the ranks, the free thinkers, the men with high testosterone levels, and anyone else who does not love Joe Biden, and make them leave immediately. It's a takeover of the U.S. military. Here's how they're doing it. This show has just obtained a PowerPoint that the Army is using to justify mandatory vaccines to the troops. This is an actual slide from it on your screen. You will notice there the sympathetic portrayal of...
Thank you, Twitter media player, for not doing your basic job. He goes on, I'll just pause this here because Twitter doesn't know how to, do its job. He goes on to say that this is a plot to identify the sincere Christians in the ranks, the free thinkers, the men with high testosterone levels, and anybody else who doesn't love Joe Biden, and make them leave immediately. What's interesting about this plot is anybody who's ever served in the military, ask them about the amount of needles that they had to have shoved into their arm in order to get these vaccinations. Said at once. Hopefully Twitter doesn't remove me and get rid of my job. Not Twitter, YouTube. This has been, you talk to soldiers and they'll say, oh yeah, I got like 15, 20 shots, 20, 25 shots. I had no clue what was in it as I had to go overseas for a deployment. This is something that has regularly been part of the medical culture in the military and the military culture. It's the culture in the military that this is part of it. This has been policy in the military for a very long time. But now this new needle, this new special needle is a plot. Catch all the military for who isn't sufficiently liberal enough. A bizarre claim that had no backing, but he said stuff like this all the time on his platform. Now, I want to highlight something interesting here. I want to highlight the difference between how Tucker Carlson talked about unarmed black people being killed by the police versus how he talked about Ashley Babbitt being killed by the police. Let's play a few minutes on how he talks about police violence and unarmed black people, what cases he highlights and how he talks about them versus Ashley Babbitt.
Completely naked. Unarmed African Americans were fatally shot by the police. There were 9 men and 1 woman. Now, as we said, a lot is at stake. The country is at stake. So we want to take the time now to go through these case by case into the specifics. The first was a man called Chinara Feep. He was killed by a Knoxville police officer called Dylan Williams. According to Williams, Feep attacked him, choked him, and then used a taser on him, the suspect on the police officer, before the officer shot him. 5 eyewitnesses corroborated the officer's claim, and the officer was not charged. The second case concerns a man called Marcus McVeigh. He was, by any description, a career criminal from San Angelo, Texas. He'd been convicted of aggravated assault, assault on a public servant, and organized criminal activity. At the time he was killed, he was wanted on drug dealing charges. A Texas state trooper pulled him over. McVeigh fled in his car, then he fled on foot into the woods. There he fought with a trooper and was shot and killed. The officer was not charged in that case. Marzua Scott assaulted a shop employee. When a female police officer arrived and ordered the suspect toward her car, he instead charged her and knocked her to the ground. At that point, she shot and killed him. The entire incident was caught on body camera. The officer was not charged. Ryan Twyman was being approached by 2 LA County deputies when he backed into one of them with his vehicle. The deputy was caught in the car door. He and his partner opened fire. The deputies were not charged in that case. Melvin Watkins of East Baton Rouge, Louisiana, was shot by a deputy after he allegedly drove his car toward the deputy at high speed. The deputy was not charged. Isaiah Lewis, meanwhile, wasn't just unarmed, he was completely naked. Williams broke into a house and then attacked a police officer. The police tased Williams, but he kept coming.
You get the point. These are the cases he highlights when it comes to police brutality in this country when talking about unarmed people being killed. These are the cases he talks about. Now, I'm not going to go through all these specific cases and talk about whether you're justified or not justified. He is highlighting the cases where it's going to be the most justified for a police officer to use a weapon against somebody who is unarmed. I wouldn't really say driving a car somebody who's unarmed because you're using your car like a weapon, but these are the cases he highlights. This is what he talks about, how he downplays police violence, how he says that, look, this guy was a career criminal. This guy was breaking the law. And then you move over to Ashley Babbitt and how he talks about this person who went through multiple police lines, like three separate police lines, then broke into the United States Capitol, went through the rest of the crowd to the last point between her and a bunch of Congress people and senators who were trying to evacuate the building, then had a police officer tell her multiple times, a whole crowd, stay back, stay back, stay back. She jumps through the window trying to get into this area where the politicians are because they can see them in the background running away, and a police officer shoots and kills her. This is how he talked about that in comparison.
So there were many mysteries we could not solve. Among them, unfortunately, is the shooting of Ashley Babbitt. From the evidence we have, the publicly available evidence, it seems clear that Babbitt was murdered by a Capitol Hill police officer called Michael Byrd. Ashley Babbitt was unarmed. She was shorter in stature than average. She posed no conceivable threat to anyone. But beyond that, we can only speculate about what happened. There were no security cameras near the speaker's lobby where Ashley Babbitt was killed. So there were many mysteries.
Be clear. He says we can only speculate. There's no cameras. I mean, we only have the little bit of footage from a phone that was taken. All we can do is speculate, but it's murder. He doesn't need any evidence for this. He can speculate freely. It's not speculation. This is an accusation. He's calling it murder, which means unlawful killing, that it was illegal, that the police officers should be in jail. Notice how he talks about unarmed black people being killed by police. That was fine. It was justified. It was cool. Then when it moves on to Ashley Babbitt, somebody who was trying to breach through into the Capitol to get to Congress people, who was warned multiple times, murder. We don't have all the footage. We couldn't make a really informed decision here. According to Tucker Carlson, he brought it up. Murder. My goodness. What else do we got here? God, I have so many links on Tucker. Oh yes, the Patriot Purge is the other thing. I already did a video on my main channel about Tucker Carlson's Patriot Purge documentary that was on the Fox Network. I actually paid for the Fox Network subscription and reacted to it. If you want to see it, you can go find that on my main channel somewhere in one of my old videos on Dylan Burns TV. The whole documentary's premise is that the January 6th was incited by the feds. By police officers, by the FBI. Did he ever present any evidence for that? No, not really. The only evidence he presented was getting people who knew things about PSYOPs and knew things about the FBI who would come on and say, yeah, it's possible. And that would be the evidence he would provide to then make the accusation that it was done by the feds. And that's how Tucker Carlson works. He takes the flimsiest of evidence and the flimsiest of testimony and runs with it like it's absolute truth. That's always how he's run his network. What else do we got here? God, there's so many. I don't think we're going to listen to all of them. Oh my goodness. Oh, dude, there's so many. I think this is enough. I think I've gotten the point. I think we've done enough Tucker Carlson review. I am honestly not upset at all about Tucker Carlson losing his job. I think Tucker Carlson not being on the primetime Fox slot is a good thing. This is a guy who's lied about Ukraine. This is a guy who's lied about COVID. This is a guy who's lied about any endless number of topics and also uses extremely dangerous rhetoric to talk about a whole host of issues, whether it's, hey, maybe you should go beat up those teachers who are talking to your kids about gender identity. Hey, you know what? I think it's actually a big fed op what happened on January 6th. We shouldn't have to learn about what's going on at all. The way he run his show for the last few years that he was on the primetime slot has just been what will get me the most viewership, what will get me the most attention. I'm not a reporter. I'm an entertainer, and my job is to make rage porn. And that's what he's done for the last few years on Fox. He's not going to stop. He's going to go make his own show, or he's going to go join another network. But the primetime slot was the pinnacle of Tucker Carlson. It's hard to imagine him raising any higher than the 3.5 to 4 million viewers he was getting on the Fox network in the primetime slot. We've seen Tucker Carlson at his peak, and no matter what he does from here, it's all downhill. He can still make a lot of money, he can still rake in a lot of viewers, but it's hard to imagine that he's ever going to have the same amount of relevancy that he had before.